Hi, I'm Hazel. It's Saturday again, which makes it time to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I've been up to, and answer some of your questions. This week, we did not find out when the Shadowlands pre-patch is going to be. We still don't know, and that's getting increasingly weird. But we did get the pre-patch on the background downloader, so while we still don't have an official date, we know it's going to be soon. Blizzard has been blasting alerts and emails, reminding people to get their last-minute to-dos done before the Shadowlands pre-patch comes out. We just don't know exactly when, and that's a little bit strange. And typically, they like to give at least the PvPers some notice on the end of their season. Not always 2 weeks, but, you know, usually like 10 to 12 days or so. And we haven't seen any sign of that yet, so our window for prospective pre-patch is like inching closer and closer to October. I have to assume that if they knew when pre-patch was going to launch, they would tell us, and they're not just keeping it quiet for like the suspense. So I'm guessing there must be something still up in the air that they're either trying to get work or fix before they actually launch the thing. Otherwise, you know, you'd think they would at least tell us when to expect it. In the meantime, the last Afterlives animated short came out on YouTube, so Afterlives Revendreth is now available, and we have seen all of them. This last one was really fun. I think the voice acting really made it, and can only be described as delicious, which is a little bit of an uncomfortable word to use in this context, but can you tell me I'm wrong? I still feel like the Bastion one is my favorite. I feel like that single animated short convinced me of not only the aesthetic but also the spooky undertones of the Kyrians, and made me want very badly to be able to pick that as my covenant. The Kyrian priest ability is really fun too, if a little wordy, but it's fun to use, so I think that's the way I'm leaning for Shadowlands right now anyways, would be human Kyrian holy priest. For now. But yeah, all the Afterlives shorts are out, and they did not follow up the last one with any kind of a pre-patch date announcement, but I thought they were an excellent sort of teaser, like an appetizer for the Shadowlands expansion. Something to chew on while we wait for the expansion to crawl its way closer. In Shadowlands updates, we got some news this week on exactly what they're going to do with PvP gearing to make it a little bit more usable in PvP. Basically boils down to two things. Firstly, they are putting versatility on all of the conquest gear, so any piece of conquest gear you get is going to be versatility plus a secondary, and they're also doing a 2-piece set bonus on PvP trinkets, so that if you are wearing 2 PvP trinkets, you're going to get an increased damage and healing benefit from your versatility, not an increased defensive benefit, just damage and healing. In spirit, these changes are exactly what I need to get really excited about PvP again. I feel like this is enough for me to just kind of scrape by in full PvP gear and be viable enough. I might not be perfect, but I'll be close enough to scrape by in my life. However, I do think that that 2-set bonus needs some serious buffs. It's not giving you 20% extra damage and healing. It's giving you 20% more from your versatility, and once you math that out, it's much more underwhelming. Minpoike was tweeting about how on beta it was only mathing out to about 2% extra damage and healing, and you get much more from that with the raid trinkets as it is. So this PvP trinket set bonus, great idea, I'm all aboard, needs to be buffed a lot, but I really hope that they follow through and do that, because otherwise, what was the point? This week also got people talking about item levels from Mythic Plus gear versus raid gear. We found out that in Shadowlands, your top end of dungeon reward from a Mythic Plus key, so if you get the capped, the best piece of loot that you can get from the end of a Mythic Plus dungeon, it is going to be 3 item levels lower than a piece of loot from the heroic raid, specifically from the first 8 bosses. It's important to remember that that's just the end of dungeon item. Your weekly vault item is going to continue to be better than heroic raid loot. I feel like this has caused a lot of consternation because the perception of Mythic Plus loot is worse than raid loot brings this feeling of you are now forcing Mythic Plus players to raid in order to push keys to the max, which I feel like has been and will probably continue to be true, that the best players are going to be the ones that are doing both. However, I feel like there's really no way to win with this one item level wise. You either do this, where Mythic Plus loot is a little bit behind and Mythic Plus players feel like they need to raid, or if you made the Mythic Plus loot better, then the raiders feel like they need to push keys, or you make them exactly dead even the same, and then you're still going to have raiders feel forced to push keys because you can get vastly more loot out of Mythic Plus because you can do as many keys as you want, whereas you are stuck with a lockout's worth of raid loot within a given week. So Mythic Plus kind of has the edge in terms of quantity. From my perspective, I don't think they're ever going to win this one, and I think this current item level spread is mostly fair. Between this and then Mythic Plus dungeons only giving 1 piece of loot from the end of dungeon chest, it is going to take quite a bit longer for a Mythic Plus only player to kind of round out their gear set and feel feel like they're done, and that could definitely be frustrating if that is your primary source of gear. Anecdotally, I would say that in BFA, my raiding guild got to this point where we had so much gear just from doing a couple of Mythic Plus keys every week that by the time that we were progressing on Carapace and Heroic N'Zoth, most people didn't even really need the Carapace and N'Zoth loot anymore in terms of item levels. There were a couple of trinkets that people were looking for, but for the most part, before we had even finished progressing through the raid, we were pretty much done with it loot-wise, and by the time we'd finished the raid, nobody needed farm at all, and we just kind of put it down to wait until Shadowlands, well before the point we would have stopped farm in previous expansions. Whether or not that's a good thing depends on how much an individual person enjoys farm raid night, but you can't deny that it's a big change from the pace of raid gearing in the days before Mythic Plus. So I see these changes as trying to find like a middle ground where you can still gear up faster if you're choosing to engage in more and different types of content, but it's just a little bit, you're a little bit more likely to like get to the end of the raid before you're completely done with it loot-wise. In other news, the secret battle pet Jenafur was finally found this week after 11 months of the secret finding community working on this secret. That sets a new record by far for the longest lived WoW secret, and I would be pretty surprised to see if there was ever another one that was as tenacious. Jenafur is a very cute pet, and you should definitely go get it if you haven't done so already and you like collecting or pets or cats that eat flesh and spread void tentacles. It's a great time. The actual process of getting the pet is thankfully much less complicated than the secret behind that process, so you can get it done in like a half an hour or so if you're paying attention, and I did put out a video guide this week walking you through the things that you need to specifically do. So get on top of that if you're interested and get yourself a kitty cat. Speaking of, where is my kitty cat? Kitty cat! Usually the cat jumps up all by herself, but she was asleep 2 rooms away, so I decided to break out the bribery. Come here. There you go. Over here. And in my life this week, it has been an awful lot of staying indoors and monitoring the air quality outside. We just had rain last night, and it chunked the AQI from like 300, 350s down to like 150, 120, which is fantastic. I like opened a window on purpose. It was amazing. In the meantime, I've been playing a lot of WoW, and I've gotten absolutely addicted to transmog collecting. I've always been kind of so-so on collecting appearances that I didn't personally really want to wear, just for the sake of having more appearances, but for whatever reason, something in my brain just snapped, and now I must have them all. And then yesterday, one of my guildies showed me this website called Data for Azeroth that ranks you based on so many different WoW parameters, and also helps you see things like your rarest titles and pets and toys, and your score includes things like all the recipes that you have across your alts and how many alts you have leveled and how many pets and mounts and how leveled your pets are and how many appearances you have, and it's just absolute madness. It's ruining my life, and I've only had it for like a day. Check it out if you have a lot of time and you are prepared for your life to be ruined. If you are kind of like a completionist collector kind of person, you can just look up your character. You don't need an account. It's awful, and I love it. And questions for this week. Mary asks, do we know what's happening to Mythic Island expeditions when Shadowlands comes along? Are we able to do them solo to keep mount farming? So I logged into beta, and currently, as of right now, the answer is not really, but maybe they're working on it. Normal and Heroic Island expeditions still have a queue button, and that button still makes you wait for other people to queue up. Mythic Island Expeditions says not yet available, which is different from the usual error message it has. So it's possible that they're working on some kind of a solo queue system. We did have this tweet from WatcherDev back in July indicating that it's very unlikely they would require level 60 players to form groups for content that they can easily solo. To me, that means that solo queuing Island Expeditions will probably happen. It's just a question of when. I imagine that it's not top of their list, and I also imagine they have a pretty big list right now. So I bet it's going to happen, just maybe not right away. And Josue asks, do we know when the Pathfinder changes will come to live, pre-patch or Shadowlands release? Those are coming in pre-patch, and as a review for anybody that forgot about the Pathfinder changes coming in Shadowlands, after the Shadowlands pre-patch, you will no longer need a Pathfinder achievement to fly in Draenor or Broken Isles, so Legion content. You will still need BFA Pathfinder to fly in BFA, and there is going to be a Shadowlands Pathfinder to eventually fly in Shadowlands, not available on launch. But as of pre-patch, Draenor and Legion zones are fair game, even if you never did those Pathfinder achievements, so that's something to look forward to. I would guess that the plan is to rotate the BFA Pathfinder requirement out with the expansion after Shadowlands, and have it kind of be like a legacy loot mode thing, where you no longer need to do Pathfinders for really old expansions, expansions, but still the current one and the one that you just left. And AncroKT asks, are there fish in the Shadowlands, and how does that work? Are we just perma-killing the spirits of these fish? There are fish. Their names range from pocked bonefish to the lost soul, S-O-L-E, which I find a little too funny. We're also able to cook banana beef puddings and pickled meat smoothies, so I think it's safe to say that food in Shadowlands is just off its rocker. I do think it's kind of funny that fish works because reasons, but archaeology? No, my immersion. I think it's pretty clear that archaeology is not happening because it's just not that popular of a secondary profession, and it wasn't high enough on the list to like merit development resources. I would imagine that it'll come back in a future expansion with something a little more exciting, but clearly in its current form, did not make the cut. Actually, that was funny. We were looking at like rare achievements on Data for Azeroth, and Coal Tier and Archaeologist had like a surprisingly low percentage of people that had even bothered to do it, despite the fact that it's an incredibly easy thing to do. So I've gotten off topic, but yes, there are fish in Shadowlands and also pickled meat smoothies. And that's been my week. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer on one of these videos, please leave them in the comments of the most recent news video and include the word question. Stop by a stream sometime if you like, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.